It's May 24th, and went to church this morning. This was the fourth Sunday in a row that I've been to a different church. I attended a church called The Bridge this morning. It's like a non-denominational church, very nice church, big congregation, a lot of people at the 9 a.m. service, a lot of young people, looked like a lot of like college crowd. Um, but it was a great service. They had a good worship team, kind of a contemporary setup with a bass guitar, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, and keyboard and drums with a couple of singers. So that was nice. They had like a special kind of service today. It was like a prayer and worship service, so I was glad I caught that. But yeah, that was good. Let's see. We went over Matthew, and chapters 18, 19, 20. Went over some Colossians, chapters 2 and 3. And on the handout, there was a list of the Ten Commandments, so I was glad to be able to review those. I have it around here somewhere, but you can find those. Today, I just wanted to introduce this book. This is one of the first books that I read that really started to kind of open my eyes about the real deal going on with Christianity, and as far as like the reliability of the story of Christ. And so it kind of just sheds a lot of light on some of just the fundamental arguments for the accuracy of the story. And so let me just share a couple of passages here, and we'll call it a day. But he spent months, hundreds of hours, researching evidence and different manuscripts and texts, trying to determine if the New Testament is true. And he comes to the conclusion that after a rigorous survey, after rigorous study, that the books of the Gospel and Acts, and generally the New Testament as a whole, are all true. He says, quote, "It's rock solid truth." And we'll detail some more of these arguments one by one as it goes. But one of the things that I've been saying is talking about the explosion of manuscripts that came out right after Christ's death and resurrection. And so he goes into some of that here. But he makes some statements like, "I believe there's more evidence for the reliability of the New Testament than for almost any other 10 pieces of classical literature put together." And he applies these rigorous tests of bibliographical tests, internal tests, evidence tests, and external evidence tests. But he puts in a perspective in another edition of this book that I read. He talks about Thucydides. I don't know, it's omitted from this one for some reason. Maybe there was new evidence, but I just looked it back up. But Thucydides, who's known as like the modern, the father of modern history, wrote a book called The History of the Peloponnesian War. And there's something like 20 manuscripts, original manuscripts dating to like the 1st century AD that tell the story, which actually occurred hundreds of years before that. And so he's called the father of history, and because of these 20 manuscripts, original type manuscripts that are found of his History of the Peloponnesian War. And then as compared to, he says here, of all the ancient writings we have of the New Testament far outshine the others in terms of manuscript quantity. Most ancient writings have maybe a couple hundred manuscripts to their name, which is sufficient. Comparatively, at the time of this writing, the Institute for New Testament Textual Research lists the number of manuscripts to the New Testament at 5,700. The next runner-up is Homer's Iliad, which boasts around 1,900 manuscripts. And he's talking about the earliest manuscripts. He goes into even greater detail talking about we have as many as 12 manuscripts from the 2nd century, 64 from the 3rd, 48 from the 4th, a total of 124 manuscripts just within the first 300 years of the composition of the New Testament. And he also argues that there's evidence that the earliest manuscripts of the New Testament, that the New Testament books, like the books of the Gospel, were in fact written within just a few generations of Jesus's life. So yeah, this is a good book to read through. But you gotta just get rid of all preconceived notions that you might have, especially now, because now is a really good time, in my opinion, to reevaluate, the validity of the New Testament, because so much else is going on in this crazy world that we live in, and it is a really good time to come to Christ. That's my opinion. I surrendered my life to Christ, and I look forward to meeting him one day. God bless you. Have a good week.